Thank you, Lindsay, for getting us started. Welcome to the University Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. My name is Ann Packham. I will be your service leader today. Before we get too much into the service, just a couple of housekeeping. If you're here physically in the sanctuary, we have our emergency exits, the door here you came in through, in the back, as well as the one here into the hallway. I also want to remind everybody that besides the folks that are here in the room, we have our longtime members as well as guests online. So I encourage you to wave to them and say hello. We welcome you here, whether you can come in person or you're online. Every week is different at this place. We are a lay-led congregation, which means we kind of make it up as we go along. We not in a random way, but what I was saying is very different from my upbringing, which was I grew up in the Episcopal Church, where I felt like, to me, every week was sort of like the same. Well, I don't feel that here at all. Here, every week is a little bit different. We have a lot of the same friendly faces, but we have different speakers. So some of them come from our academic community, some from our nonprofits, some are own members of the community here, and from other religious traditions. So please join us many times to get to know us, and hopefully you'll call this your home. We do have coffee and conversation after the service, so please join us for coffee and tea and other refreshments as well. Before we get too much into the service, we give our committee chairs an opportunity to share briefly what's going on. So please come to the microphone to share. If you're here also visiting, whether it's online or in person, all of this information is in our notable newsletter that comes out every week. So please sign up for that and read your email.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janet, and I'm happy to say that New Inquiring Minds, our discussion group, is meeting next Sunday before the service at 9 a.m. It's going to be open mic, so I hope to see you there for an interesting discussion.
Laura Owen, Social Action Committee. The meeting today is today after services at 12 o'clock. But then wearing another hat, I'm the liaison and communicating with the notable news with First U, 1U downtown. And there's a couple interesting groups I just wanted to let you know about. There's a 1U caregiver support group that has met every Friday at 3 p.m. on Zoom. Our caregivers take care of spouses, parents, elderly siblings, and are living with a number of complications. So this group has been going on for a long time. If you're interested, look at the notable news or go to the 1U website. It's on Zoom, so they'll want your email so you can get the Zoom email. And then the other group, which is kind of interesting, never heard of this before, called Roots and Wings, and they actually meet on site at 1U. And this is listed as a class. This is the person who emailed me from 1U. It's really a gathering of sacred beings who have a desire to make friends with death. Sounds a little ominous. Each month I offer a topic for discussion, and we do so in a sacred, safe, brave space. I offer 5 p.m. gathering the third Wednesdays and 11 a.m. gathering on the fourth Tuesdays, and they meet at 1U. So if you're interested in either one of those and more information, just get online or look at your notable news. Okay, thanks.
Jill Vita for the Sisterhood. We're having our Galentine's Day dinner on this Friday, so I hope you can join us and bring something that you would love to share, because we love each other.
It's a week from Friday, Jill. Don't confuse us.
A week from Friday, sorry. I'm jumping ahead. It is on the board.
Hi, I'm Amanda, representing the Parent Support Group. We meet on the first and third Sundays of every month. We invite you to join us, so it's lovely to have a supportive group that has shared values when you're raising children. So you're welcome to join us, first and third Sundays. Sure.
Just a reminder for Lost and Found, you may have something of yours in this box. So please check it out before you leave. And on February 8th, these items will be donated to Goodwill. So you might want to check it out today or next week. And February 8th is, I believe that's in 2 weeks, and also our quarterly meeting. So.
Hi, Larry here for the brick project. As you can see, this is each brick will be only $35, which is pretty good, pretty good. So we want to try and get a bunch of these out there. Everything is in the notable news, so there's going to be an order form in there and everything, we're not going to do paper order forms, you know, or anything like that. So you can go into notable news, and as you see, simply email admin universityuus.org. Huh? Yeah, we're going to pay for it online, right? Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're lucky to have Colleen here today, our administrator. So if you have any questions, and if for some reason you're not getting the notable news, she will help you. But
So
all
we're
the
gonna be-
details will be there.
We'll be doing this for a while, and then we'll order them probably next month or so, okay? And then I'll put them in.
So for the price to be 35, we need a minimum of 5 bricks ordered.
bricks.
So otherwise, they're like $80 a piece. So hopefully, we already have 2 orders, so we're getting close. 3 already, all right, 3. Any,
May I add one thing? If you've already contacted me, you're on the list. We're just getting started. So please know that we heard you, you're on the list, and I'll get back to you.
Right, once we get at least 5, then we can put the order in, okay? Because we don't want to pay $80 a brick. Okay? And if you want to look, go outside and look at the path. There's plenty of spaces out there, okay? All right.
it's not a fundraiser. This time is really, we're just doing it more to enhance the space and give our newer members who may not have been here the last time we did this, an opportunity to honor a loved one or just celebrate something going on that's great.
Hi, everyone. Tay, the RE coordinator. Thank you. Woo. Just a note on quarterly meeting again, it's going to be February 8th. There is childcare afterwards, so if you are new and you haven't been to a quarterly meeting, we do provide childcare. We watch movies, we'll order pizza, and that will all be just in the back. We'll basically have like an extended RE. So thank you, and just letting you guys know that's happening.
Good morning, everyone. Miguel Rodriguez from Social Action Committee. Laura already announced that we're having a meeting today at noon in the library and on Zoom. And I want to also emphasize that I don't think there has been a more important time to be part of SAC, given what's going on in the world and locally and statewide. The state has removed funding for HIV/AIDS, so we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the planned new ICE detention facility just down the street from us. Pretty much, that could happen. We don't want to be another Minneapolis, right? So this congregation is part of Pledge, and Pledge pledges to protect those vulnerable communities. So we're going to see what we can do to protect those vulnerable communities as well as ourselves. So be part of that, be part of SAC. Come join us today. We're going to be talking about a lot of important things. We're going to be starting off reading from this new, really voluminous, big book called On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. This was gifted to me and everybody who attended the Holocaust classes in the Holocaust Center in Maitland years ago. I hope they're still doing those classes because they were very good and very important, and we need things like this. So I hope you can join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much from all of our committee chairs. So my opening words today, I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but annually there is a campaign organized by UU churches across the country called Side with Love. We've talked about it a little bit before here. It's basically the organizing strategy team of the Unitarian Universalist Association. So Side with Love traditionally starts on MLK Day and ends around the weekend of Valentine's. So we've just started it. And love is at the center, reimagining the world as it could be is the theme for this particular week. So I'm reading from the Side with Love website. Reimagining asks us to imagine differently. When we imagined yesterday, to imagine in all directions, unfettered, unhindered, unbound. As people of faith, we are forever called to reimagine, to center love, and to let it guide our way, to believe that a better world is not only possible, but that we are in creating it right now, every day, in large and small ways. We can reimagine a flourishing future and hold it in our hearts, not restricted, but reinforced, not for what I think I can be done in my lifetime, but what will live on beyond me. We have everything we need, in community, in faith, to realize a future where all communities flourish. Let's reimagine together, beloveds, a world with love at the center. Our opening music today is from Inclusion. They will be presenting Daniel Tigard's Neighborhood. We're so glad to see Inclusion back up here.
I have some helpers here with me. How many of you, when you were little kids, watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? And how many of you, with your kids, watched it? So Mr. Rogers was a wonderful neighbor. He actually went to school near here in Rollins College, Middleburg. And today, the kids are hearing a new version of his neighborhood song from the TV show Daniel Tiger. So Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. And so these young people, and imagine other kids watch that. So we're going to try Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day to remember. Won't you be mine, won't you be my neighbor? It's Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, let me have a lead. Won't you ride along? Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, so much to see, much to do. Won't you ride along? There are lots of friends we meet in this land of make-believe. Friendly face on every street, and waiting to meet you. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, beautiful day to remember. In Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood.
Thank you very much. You know what we didn't do at the beginning of the service was actually to greet your neighbor. And so why don't we go ahead and do that before we light the chalice? Say hi to somebody maybe that you don't know. Okay, well, I'm going to bring everybody back now. So now is the time when we light our chalice. Our chalice lighter today is Chase. Chase uses he, him pronouns. He's 15, and he's excited because he rode his bike. Oh. Thank you. Perfect, you did it. Let's say together in unison. In the light of truth, and the warmth of love we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. And each week we recite the affirmation that tells us why we come here and why we are together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. Now we transition in our service to a time of joys and concerns. This is an opportunity for folks to express any great joys in their lives, or any things that may be weighing on them heavily. I do want to remind you that this is being live streamed or broadcast and will live in the internet forever. So please don't say anything on here that you wouldn't want to live on the internet.
The food was delicious.
So I wanted to drop a stone for the person that was murdered yesterday. By ICE agents, yes. He's a nurse. He was a nurse, an ICU nurse. So that always hurts.
My joy is that yesterday, Chloe, Caitlin, and I all went to the International Vegan Festival in downtown Orlando. It was very awesome, lots of great food. We brought our dogs. They had a great time. They had a great time meeting everyone. And it was just nice to have a little bit of joy in the middle of what all's going on in the world.
So I have two joys. My first one is that my 24-year-old nephew, who is in law school, is taking this semester off because he is clerking for Senator Amy Klobuchar, which is not an easy clerkship to get apparently, but he got, and he does not live in Minnesota, he lives in Illinois, but we have family roots in Minnesota. So kind of piggybacking off the concern with go Minneapolis. So, and then my other joy is regarding my mother, who's 89. I've had two opportunities to see her recently, both for good reasons. And overall, she's doing well, and she's, I think I mentioned this before, but in case you didn't hear or you forgot, she was recently diagnosed with wet macular degeneration, so she is no longer driving, which is a really good thing. She was scary to begin with, so anyway. And she's adjusting to not driving. Unfortunately, she has the best neighbors on the planet that are taking really good care of her and keep an eye on her, and they check on her every day. And the wife takes her to the grocery store, and the husband takes her just about everywhere else. So yeah, they're the best neighbors. So they bring me a lot of comfort. So those are my joys.
Hi, Chloe McElroy. I'm wearing a sunflower dress, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm not going to give too many details since we're, publishing online, but one of my friends is waiting for her paperwork to come through, and she hasn't been able to work because of that. And because ICE is in Florida and in Orlando, I'm just really worried about her. So if you could just send love to the paperwork gods, that her stuff comes through, because she has been legally married, but none of her paperwork has come through yet. And she is from the place that we were trying to start a war with, and have been bombing boats from. So just, don't want to give too many details, but just send some good vibes her way, because she desperately needs them.
Hello, David McElroy. I have a concern and a joy. The concern is that in Minneapolis, I have 4 or 5 nephews, nieces, and one of them is an observer of the ICE situation. So I've asked him to, if he's going to film way away. Don't go up in their face, but he's his own man, so I don't know. The joy is that 2 of our dear friends who went to France are here today, Luke and Margie. And we're so happy to have them back, and glad that they're here and that they're our good friends.
Well, it's a joy to know that I'm back here. I'd say it's a joy. My whole family lives in Texas and Atlanta, and they're going to be concerned about the ice storm.
Yes, this is Harvey Lerman. Used to be with a lot of other people, and most of them are half trained or unhalf trained, if that goes that well. So hope to see you again sometime. I'm not tied in. My wife is ready yet, so she can come in sometimes as well. Thank you.
My mom's family is coming to town in March.
Allie Carville here. I have two joys. First is that it is my mother's 85th birthday today. We just saw her and family recently, so that's the good joy. And personal joy for me is starting up hockey again, sled hockey. So that's the choice. Thank you.
My joy is that after church I'm going to my friend's party, birthday party.
I'm having a tough time with depression these days, and I think a lot of it has to do with what's going on in our country. There's some other stuff too. But when you hear the Prime Minister of Canada get up in front of the entire world and say, you know, this is just ridiculous. This is not right. This is not what it should be. And we need to rethink our alignments and all that kind of stuff. And then when you hear Christine Lagarde, the former European finance minister or whatever, I'm not sure of her title, get up and say, if you don't have truth, you don't have trust, and if you don't have trust, you have nothing. So, those are the things I look to and hang on to, and hopefully that's going to spread quickly.
Amen to that. There is a concern. Kelly has Eustachian tube dysfunction. That's inner ear infection, but she's going to the ear, nose, and throat specialist soon. So send thoughts and prayers, please, to her. I have a joy. I forgot to mention before that although the state has defunded HIV/AIDS funding, is that a double? Anyway. We are contributing, thanks to Alyssa and Chloe, we are donating to the center, which is near downtown Orlando, which helps the LGBTQ community and others with that terrible, disease and trying to get therapy and all that for them. So we thank you. That happened, I think, before the news of the defunding happened. So please give generously if you can. Thank you. That is a joy, because we're stepping up when the state doesn't.
Hi, Marilyn Furmanig, and just to piggyback on the Minnesota thing, we lived there for over 9 years, had our girls there, and still have several friends and relatives there. And we heard from 3 reliable sources, including David's nephew, who's a trained observer. And I don't know if any of you know Reverend Christine Dance. We met her from First U, and she's a reverend. There's been a huge call for reverends and ministers to come to Minneapolis. And also we have dear close friends, excuse me, who have said that conditions are much worse than are reported. Everyone we know there has said that it's even worse than what you read about. Please drop a stone. And for the young man who is 37 years old, like Renee Good, and the same age as my oldest daughter. This is not right, and please call your representatives. Call. It only takes a minute. Put them in your phone. You'll probably get a recording. But from what I hear, those calls are recorded, and they are counted. So please call.
All right, so the joys and concerns are coming through hot and heavy on Zoom here. So we got Stephen Hall. You guys know Stephen Hall, right? A member of his extended family had throat cancer several years ago. He is a Top Gun Navy veteran. The reproduction of his cancer and treatment put him back in the hospital. His handle name is Dart. Please hold him in your thoughts and prayers.
I want to end on an upbeat note that I had a joy this week of going with Kelly, Carl, Joey, and Michael, a visitor here, to the Million Meal Packaging event at the Convention Center to honor MLK. So we made rice and beans and jambalaya for hundreds of people in those couple of hours, and it was really nice to be part and to see how many, like they had so many volunteers that they had to limit the shifts. It was incredible. So there is some hope, I hope. So let's just take a moment to just have a moment of silence. Amen. So we now have our time for all ages, and I think Tay is going to provide that.
Hi everyone. Today's Time for All Ages is a European folktale called Stone Soup. Once upon a time, there was a small village which was inhabited by people who did not have a lot. And they didn't like sharing the things with others that they had because they all had very little. And they would lock their doors and their windows tight and keep the little provisions they had for themselves. One day, a visitor passed through the village. He was very hungry and exhausted from his long journey. He stopped at the first house he could see, knocked on the door, and hoped to get some food. And the woman inside opened the door a crack and looked out and said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am a traveler, and I was passing through your village. I'm tired and I'm hungry. Can I please have something to eat?" "Go away. We hardly have any food here," replied the woman. "I doubt you'll find anyone who has any food to spare. We are all poor," said the woman. And after she said this, the woman closed the door in the traveler's face. And the traveler was not ready to give up. So he picked up a large stone from the ground and he knocked on the woman's door again. And the lady came to the door and opened it only halfway. "What do you want now?" asked the woman. "Since you are poor like me, maybe you'd like to have some of my stone soup. It's delicious and it's fulfilling," said the traveler. "Stone soup, you say," laughed the woman as she saw the stone in the traveler's hand. "You can't make a soup from a stone." To that, the traveler replied, "Yes, you can. I've done it before." The woman didn't believe him, as she had never seen someone make soup from stones before. However, she was hungry too, so she invited him in. She lit the fire and placed a kettle of water on top and opened the windows to let the heat out. The traveler placed the stones in the water until the water started to boil. He took a sip of the hot liquid and said, "It's almost done, but if you had just a little salt and butter, it would taste so much better." And so the woman went to her cupboard and returned with salt and butter. And as the traveler was adding them to the stone soup, the woman's husband returned. And he was returned home with carrots and potatoes in his hand. And he goes, "What are you cooking?" he asked. And they go, "Stone soup," replied the traveler and the woman. The man could not believe this and thought that it was impossible to make soup out of stones. And the traveler said, "It's almost finished," as he tasted another spoonful of soup. However, it would taste so much better if we added some carrots and potatoes to it. And the husband was also hungry, so he agreed. "Let's add some carrots and let's add some potatoes." And soon the smell of soup drifted out the open window and down the lane. A neighbor who usually stayed inside wandered out and followed the smell all the way to the first house. And there he heard the woman and her husband and the traveler talking about the stone soup. "Is the stone soup ready now?" the woman and her husband asked the traveler. "Yes, but it could be even better if we had some turnips and some beans." "I have some!" yelled the neighbor who was watching from the window. The neighbor was curious to taste the soup made of stones, so he returned with turnips and beans, and he poured it into the pot, and the smell of soup drifted further into the village. Word of a traveler making a soup out of stone drew the villagers out of their houses and towards the woman's house. They all followed the smell. "Is the stone soup ready yet?" asked the villagers when they came up to the window. And the traveler responded, "Yes, but I remember having stone soup once with fresh chicken and broth." And another farmer said, "I have chicken," and then ran home to get some. And another said, "I have broth." And they both came and placed the items into the pot. And by this moment, the pot was full to the brim with goodness. The traveler tried another sip of the soup. "Perfect," he exclaimed. And then he proceeded to serve a bowl of stone soup to every villager. "It's delicious," said the villagers. "Where can we get this magic stone?" asked some. And the traveler shook his head, pulled out the stone from the soup, and the villagers realized that it was just a normal stone, and that the flavor of the soup came from the ingredients and not the stone. The traveler drank what was left of the soup and continued on his journey. The villagers realized the importance of sharing, and from that day on, they shared the things they had with each other so they could all enjoy what they had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's time for our interlude and our offering. We are a generous congregation, so when you contribute here, you're helping us keep the lights on, paying our staff, helping us get great speakers and programming. So we encourage you to give generously. There's a QR code if you don't already know how to reach us. We also share 40% of the loose offering that comes in the baskets with a local organization. And this quarter it is the center, as Miguel had mentioned earlier. So give generously, and we are enjoying music by Inclusion.
Let me be when I am weary, just for cheering. Let me serve a little better those that I am striving for. Let me be a little meeker with a brother who is weaker. Think a little more of others and a little less of me.
We'll go ahead and sing out our children. We love you and bless you and send you on your way. We love you and bless you today and every day. Our speaker today is Dr. Jeffrey Nell Bradford. He's a husband, father, and civically engaged scholar, dedicated to connecting the wisdom of the humanities to everyday life. He brings this mission to the courses he teaches at Florida Atlantic University and the University of Central Florida. His Substack newsletter, Humanities in Revolt, is read by more than 4,000 subscribers across 50 states and 99 countries. Dr. Nell, take the floor.
Think about the last time you heard someone exclaim, "Now that's a man." What did that man look like? What was that man doing? Chances are he wasn't wearing a red cardigan and talking about his feelings. We tend to recognize men when their muscles bulge and they're talking tough and they're doing physical labor, when they're putting their lives at risk, when they're fighting on our side. We see John Wayne, we see Clint Eastwood, Rocky Balboa, The Rock, Chris Hemsworth, and we think, now that's a man. And in so doing, we fall victim to patriarchy's confirmation bias, whereby we only see men as truly manly when they exhibit a narrow and damaging, often, conception of manhood, one that diminishes the alternative, life-affirming models of manhood exemplified by men like Mr. Rogers. Now, as a boy, Fred Rogers was misled by this model of manhood himself. He wrote that he had once believed that being strong, quote, meant having big muscles, great physical power, end quote. But over time, the boy who would become a pioneering children's programming creator, better known as Mr. Rogers, came to the realization that, quote, real strength has much more to do with what is not seen. Real strength has to do with helping others, end quote. This was a vision of strength that Rogers went on to consistently convey through the more than 3 decades run of his half-hour children's show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Now, despite Mr. Rogers' best efforts to guide American culture toward reconceiving of human empowerment as centered on self-knowledge, emotional awareness, and love, the idea that strength means big muscles and physical dominance lives in virtually every sphere of our society, as I think we all recognize. This misunderstanding of strength is especially influential in misinforming widespread and deeply entrenched ideas about what it means to be a man. By returning to the insights of Mr. Rogers, along with that of other feminist thinkers and life-affirming thinkers, we see that the door is not yet shut on rejecting patriarchy's dehumanizing vision of manhood and affirming a truly humanizing vision of masculinity, of boyhood, of manhood. We also see that our only chance, really our only chance of averting the catastrophes of ascendant fascism, of perpetual militarism, of climate catastrophe, of economic implosion, of genocide, of nuclear war, hinges on our success in reimagining a revolutionary manhood rooted in love as well as reason. Now, because when we look at our history, so many of our social ills are traceable to patriarchy, a word that we rarely use and yet is so often responsible for the maladies that plague our species. Patriarchy is a 5,000-year-old, at least, belief system that presupposes the superiority and the primacy of males over females. Not only that, though, also of force and dominance over love and cooperation. Patriarchy has left its mark on women's psyches and their bodies through all manner of abuse and denigration, from depriving them of the right to participate fully in self-governance or sports or public life, to have safety and security within their own bodies. Patriarchy has normalized also the entitlement of men to control women's lives, to physically reprimand them, to exploit their labor, including, importantly, their unique, if not divine, power to literally create life. Patriarchy has also left its mark on men's psyches and men's bodies, leaving them in various states of alienation from their full humanity, the sweet nectar of joyful living itself. To speak of patriarchy is not to speak of male's nature. Patriarchy is an ideology. It is not a biology. Patriarchy is the result of human invention, not biological determination, not divine determination. Patriarchy is not identical with men. They're not synonymous terms. Patriarchy is a system of human relations that generally, but not in every single instance, privileges men over women. Women can be empowered in a patriarchal culture, so long as they abide by the patriarchal system. And when they root their authority and their power in patriarchal values of dominance and control and force and exploitation in the service of hubris, in the service of hierarchy, they too can reap profound rewards. Men have most certainly been benefited, that much is true, from patriarchy's diminishment of women, but that benefit crucially comes at a very great existential cost of men's integrity. Now, in its purest, raw form, patriarchy is rigidly hierarchical authoritarianism. Different words for the same phenomenon. As with all forms of authoritarianism, patriarchy's objective is exploitation of others for the benefit of an elite few. A core commandment of patriarchal culture is that one must respect and obey those who project the greatest physical strength or the capacity to dominate, to exercise the most military, economic, or political force. Our worth under patriarchy, our right to respect under patriarchy, is contingent. It's not a given. It's not intrinsic. It's contingent on our usefulness to these strong and dominant men, and yes, also sometimes women. To put it differently, patriarchy rejects the moral belief that human beings are intrinsically valuable, that they have dignity. As Mr. Rogers so eloquently and consistently, and I think radically reminded us through his work, patriarchy says, no, your worth must be proven by your function. Viscerally speaking, another way to describe patriarchy, I think in difficult but accurate terms, is patriarchy is necrophilia. As Erich Fromm wrote in his book, The Heart of Man in 1964, the necrophilist person is driven by the desire to transform the organic into the inorganic, to approach life mechanically, as if all living persons were things, all living processes, feelings, and thoughts are transformed into things. Memory rather than experience, having rather than being is what counts. The necrophilist person can relate to an object, be it a flower or a person, only if he possesses it. End quote. We could call patriarchal masculinity necrophilous masculinity. For patriarchy is the love of force. It is the love of domination. It is the love of manipulation. It's the love of mechanization. It is not the love of life. It is not the life of dynamism, of reciprocity and growth. And sadly, it prevails in so many aspects of our society and at times, if we are honest, within ourselves and within our relation to one another. Patriarchy uniquely weaponizes biological sex to reinforce its worship of dominance and the devaluation of compassion and love. Because under patriarchy, dignity has to be earned. How is it earned? By being the right kind of man or the right kind of woman. And if you're not, you'll know it. You'll feel the shame that seemingly organically beckons you to exemplify this ancient and equally antiquated model of manhood or womanhood. Now look, the overwhelming majority of human beings fit squarely into one of two reproductive sexual categories, each with their own distinctive characteristics. As you well know, males who have the XY chromosomes and the primary sexual characteristics of testes, and females who have the XX chromosomes and the primary sexual characteristics of ovaries. Now you know that only one of these two groups is uniquely capable of insemination, and you know that the other is uniquely capable of lactation and pregnancy. There are, of course, important general differences between males and females, what biologists call secondary sexual characteristics, things like some facial hair and some body build and perhaps some muscular development. But the interesting part for me is that most of what animates us when we talk about men and women in society has little to nothing to do with gonads and chromosomes. It's not biology, but gender that people spend their time arguing about. The conflation of reproductive sex, an evolutionary necessity that has allowed us to be here, and social cultural prescriptions, which is to say gender, is evidence of the continued success of patriarchal ideology to shape the consciousness of people in the 21st century, including, by the way, at times people who will be avowed critics of patriarchy, but will fall prey to equivocating between these two important distinct terms. All too often, people from left to right use words, and you can be forgiven because it's a cultural norm, but we use words like sex and gender as if they are synonyms. Too often, too few have not yet caught up with the 20th century feminist thinkers who, in the 1970s, realized and explained that patriarchy, male dominance, dresses up its ideological dictates for men and women in the garb of biological sex and therefore biological determinism. Dress up their institutionalization of inequality as something to do with biology, something to do with gonads and chromosomes. And why? Because the state wishes to have ready-at-hand warriors. So those in power insist that God or king or nature have made it so that warfare is the fullest manifestation of manhood. Those in elite power require women to be reproductively prolific to populate their armies and exploited workforces. So they announce that God or king or nature have decided that motherhood is the singular fulfillment of complete womanhood. And that it is shameful to prevent pregnancies and sacrilegious, in fact, to terminate them. In complete defiance of the existentialist and the humanist credo, that our lives are our own and that we define ourselves, patriarchy declares men and women's essences are preconceived rather than up to them. All they have to do is obediently enact the strictly authored script of patriarchal masculinity and femininity, and then they will have joyful lives, they will have dignity, they will be worthy of respect. Now, I sometimes demonstrate the influence of unconsciously internalized popular beliefs about gender by showing students an old black and white photo of a child wearing a dress. I actually think I may have talked to you all about this when I did a talk on critical thinking some time ago. But typically I ask students to just sort of, I actually use this not in the context of a lesson on gender studies per se. It's actually part of a critical thinking exercise where I try to help people recognize how influential our background beliefs are that are sort of unrecognized but internalized, how they influence the inferences that we make, the conclusions we draw. And I ask people what they think about this child, and we have lots of interesting discussions about, clothes and mullets, and I mean, it's an interesting, widely varied conversation, smiling, no smiling, what's going on there. Almost every time, because people have to write out their thoughts and they have to write it in a complete sentence, everyone doesn't really remember this image, they haven't seen it before, so everyone identifies this child as a little girl. This person, as many of you may know, is, the only man to have served 4 terms in this country as president, and he's wearing a pretty ordinary outfit for children of that age, undergoing potty training and so on, before we have like mass-produced clothing and sweatshops to make things easier on us, I guess, harder on other folks. Now, what was interesting is I recently asked a rather disdainful student why he had concluded the child was a girl, why he had written it down. Just with curiosity, like, oh, what was it about this image that led you to conclude that this child was a girl? He said that his first answer was, well, she looks like a girl. And I'm like, okay. I did gather that, I said, politely, but I said, could you define for me what a girl is? Interesting definition. He says, a girl, he said, is a person with breasts and a vagina. Yeah. So then I have, same sort of reaction, but less laughter. You don't laugh at students. It's not effective. But a deep breath, you regather your thoughts, and you say, we're all human. Actually, the reality is that this student is articulating a fallacious thought that is incredibly prominent. Lots of people have this same thought. And so, essentially, what we have is the conflation of biology and gender. We have dress equals person with certain chromosomes and gonads. Well, that's preposterous. Obviously, that isn't necessarily the case. Now, on average and in general, if you see a person wearing a dress and you guess that they were a biological female, you'd be right, actually. On average and in general, that would be an accurate guess, but it would not be a certainty. And my concern here isn't to wag a finger at people who make educated guesses based on certain appearances and so forth. Rather, it's to highlight the way in which we seamlessly move between a category of biological existence and a cultural set of practices and norms. And the way in which those are conflated in our consciousness have profound implications for our personal lives, for our sense of identity, for our sense of worth. Now, for a moment, just consider how successful patriarchy's gender ideology has been at convincing us all that the hair that grows universally upon women and men's legs and the hair that grows under our arms is male hair. To be considered hygienic and beautiful as a woman, of course, is to keep it shaved or to ensure that it's well hidden if it isn't already shaved. Such a societal belief and practice was absent until Gillette realized it could manufacture a problem and then it could sell the solution. a frequently duplicated practice, as many of us know, living in a consumer culture. But that is the power of this 5,000-year-old system that so many of us think we've left in the past, that we're over and beyond and too smart for. That we continue to attach social practices such as wearing dresses and high heels or makeup to someone's reproductive anatomy proves how constrictive our thinking is and how confused so many of us continue to be when it comes to distinguishing between biological sex from culturally determined gender norms. These rigidly socially prescribed roles based on people's, and I'm using these terms intentionally because we need to be clear, these rigidly prescribed social roles based on people's gonads and genitals create social confusion. They create personal alienation, leaving people to feel that their biological sex does not align with their inner sense of who they are as human beings. What a painful and difficult feeling to hold the patriarchal worldview has burdened our brothers and sisters with to teach them that their anatomy is a veto upon their creative will, their self-determination, their truest sense of self. That's the power of patriarchal culture today. A humanistic vision of women and men denounces presumptions about rightfulness or wrongfulness of behavior or interests based on somebody's sex. The same way we would denounce presumptions and interests and behavior based on skin color or national origin. The radical humanistic view is that human beings are wondrously diverse and individual, and thus ought to be able to find or even invent themselves without external constraint or imposition. And to go back to Mr. Rogers, as he put it, each person in the world is a unique human being, and each has unique human potential. One of the important tasks of growing is the discovery of this uniqueness, the discovery of who I am in each of us, of who I am in relation to all those whom I meet, end quote. Such simple but profound wisdom when we take the time and we spend time in silence reflecting upon these patient but, I think, deep insights. Now, as somebody who teaches men and masculinities classes on occasion, I have to say that the men who will occasionally take these classes with me at FAU, they are soon confronted with questions about their privilege. Students are asked to reflect on the validity and the applicability of unearned privileges. I won't read them all, but a couple look like being pretty sure that they can walk down the street without people yelling at them about their body or what they want to do to them sexually. The idea that if they choose not to have children, their manhood won't necessarily be questioned, that they won't be thought of as selfish if they prioritize their careers, that their sporting endeavors will be taken seriously and even have a troop of other human beings to cheer them on, for example, that they will have much less of a burden still to the present period when it comes to domestic duties, which I think somebody whose house is a train wreck right now, and has a mightily difficult time of keeping it any other way, the difficulty of maintaining simple things like cooking and cleaning and caretaking, and the idea that so much of that work continues to fall disproportionately upon women. Those are some of the very real privileges, just to name a couple. Exploring these privileges, however, just in case I haven't made the point quite well, I always like to tell my students that at some point in the semester I will try to make you uncomfortable. So if I haven't quite gotten to you just yet, don't feel offended. I will eventually get to you. So now I'd like to make some of others of you uncomfortable or potentially slightly offended, or at least goaded a little bit, because exploring these male privileges is only the beginning of the learning dialogue that goes into this feminist-inspired men's studies classroom. The next set of questions tends to unsettle simplistic notions about the distribution of power among men and women, because I also ask my students to ponder these questions. Have you or someone you know ever shamed or criticized a boy or a man for failing to live up to cultural expectations of manhood. Perhaps when doing so suited you. Perhaps when it allowed you to get them to go into a certain action that you could benefit from. Have you ever criticized a man or a boy for being too feminine, not being strong enough, or assertive enough? Have you ever uncritically presumed a man would take up a task that was stereotyped as specific to men because you didn't want to do it, because it was too challenging, it was too gross? Frankly, my wife handles the frogs in our house, You can see why this is important to me. I do take out the trash, but anyway, we work it out. Have you ever benefited from men striving to live up to these expectations? Be they laborers working through pain or injury, soldiers serving in military combat to fulfill expectations of proper manhood so they can feel like they're worth something. Or men doing dangerous, dirty, or physically demanding tasks? The answer to that question is yes. Everyone in this room benefits from men overwhelmingly taking on many of the most physically arduous and life-threatening tasks that society demands of it. Every single one of us. Analysis exclusively concentrated on male privilege, you see, hides the price that men and boys pay for their admittedly privileged status over women. We can do both of these, I think. The fact that men have privilege does not mean that they are perfectly privileged. Male privilege has come with a fine print. Male worth is contingent, for example, on the capacity to control, if not outright dominate, to defeat, or even destroy others through force. And men's demonstrations of dominance are to be done at the command, this is important, of others, and silent yet forceful social expectations, rather than their own conscience. Most of the men who do most of the dominating in our society do it when they're told to. And we have to ask ourselves, why do they obey so much? Because their dignity is at stake. Because their sense of worth is at stake. Because they're in what they perceive as a damned if I do and damned if I don't situation. If we want to understand what's unfolding in Minneapolis, in addition to authoritarian creep, we have to understand patriarchy. And if we don't, we're just kidding ourselves about understanding what's going on there. The objectification of men as violence objects is demonstrated by the fact that only males are required to register for selective service in the United States. Patriarchal culture does not encourage men to develop their worth in self-knowledge, not in loving relations, not in developing connections to their own children. Instead, their self-worth is anchored in being a worker, one who's expected to prioritize economic productivity above virtually every other concern, including their own physical well-being, which is why so many men will work themselves to death. We exalt the story of John Henry as a great folk tale. Listen to that story again and think about it through the lens of patriarchy. A man who works himself to death because his pride says if he's defeated by the steam engine that he will be less than a man. A man who says the greatest value he has to offer the world is his physical labor. For who? To make money for who? Somebody else, because certainly not him. By the way, did you know that men make up 90% of all the workplace fatalities that occur every year? 5,000 workplace fatalities every year. Men, 90% of those. 90%, 9-0. And by the way, you might also find it interesting that when it comes to life expectancy, when we talk about male privilege, not only is it the case that men on average live 6 years less than women do, if that's privilege, why the hell do men want it? There must be something else that's at stake. It's not living a long life. They're not living a long life. Do you know, and you probably don't, and you could be forgiven for not knowing this, do you know that black women live longer in this country than do white men? White men live 73.7 years on average. Black women live 74.8. Now, if you compare white men to black men, there's no comparison. Black men. But do you see even the difference between black men and black women? Astronomical difference. How do we understand this? We need to understand what racism is. We need to have an accurate sense of white privilege. But if we don't have a proper sense of what patriarchy is and how gender functions in society, we'll have very warped ideas. We'll be telling somebody that they have some sort of perfect fairy tale privilege, all the while they're enduring lives of a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. And that's not necessarily going to get us to where we would like to get, I'm sure. Men like Fred Rogers are evidence that men don't have to be work objects, and they don't have to be violence objects. That we, men, can choose a masculinity that is rooted in life, that it is rooted in biophilia, or the love of life, over necrophilia, over death. Mr. Rogers taught millions that emotional intelligence was every bit as important as mathematic, scientific, and technological intelligence. He taught countless children that emotional sensitivity wasn't a weakness, but one of our human strengths. It was the genuine expression of human potency in a way that dominance and force and violence can never be, because in fact, those are expressions of weakness. Those are expressions of people who are in such a psychic state of exploitation that they feel as though they have to do this particular task to rescue their own souls from worthlessness. Many of the men we perceive as some of the most privileged are some of the most hurting and damaged human beings. And it is a profound difficulty, admittedly, to look upon people who wield so much violence and hatred and anger and destruction and look upon them with pity. I admit to you that that is not always easy for me to do. But if we don't have that spiritual insight and that kind of courage, I'm afraid that we're really not going to be able to achieve much of anything. Let me just share this before I close. Mr. Rogers had this profound recognition that our society has a real funky way of understanding disability. And as you know, he did such an important job of bringing all different kinds of people, all different walks of life into his program, and just treating people like humans. Because he wasn't so much focused on whether they could fight somebody or that they could work in a certain kind of physically demanding job. If he could talk to them, if they could communicate, if they could express, he saw them as human. How radical that is still today. Mr. Rogers observed that our society narrowly conceives of disabilities as inabilities of sight, hearing, or walking. And that this view prevents us from recognizing that while many are perfectly capable of seeing, hearing, and walking, they nevertheless suffer from significant emotional disability. And this is what he said. But what if people who can't feel or talk about their feelings or manage their feelings in constructive ways? What if people who aren't able to form close and strong relationships, and people who cannot find fulfillment in their lives, or those who have lost hope, who live in disappointment and bitterness, and find in life no joy, no love? These, it seems to me, are the real disabilities. Just 18 days after the killing of Renee Good, as you know, and as was expressed here, federal agents have killed yet another person during their violent onslaught against residents of Minneapolis. 37-year-old ICU nurse, his name, Alex Jeffrey Preddy, was shot several times by federal agents after he attempted to come to the aid of a woman who had been violently shoved by a federal agent. He put his body between a violent agent and a defenseless woman. He turned his back to the agent, wielding nothing but a camera, no gun in his other hand, as all of the video has shown. And as you know, at this point, he was shot. At least 10 bullets were fired, several into his body, as one of the people in one of the establishments nearby, video recording it inside, screamed out, "He's dead, he's dead, they just killed him." Preddy's next-door neighbor described him as, quote, the sweetest, kindest, most unoffensive, most nonviolent person you'd ever want to meet, end quote. Here's some advice for working through our feelings during this fraught time, because who can't be enraged? Who can't not want to pick up some kind of projectile, some side of object, engage in some kind of damage. We can turn to Mr. Rogers again. He wrote, "The values we care about the deepest and the movements within society that support those values command our love. When those things that we care about so deeply become endangered, we become enraged." Now, this is worth wondering, where's Mr. Rogers going to go with that? Rage. He's probably not going to turn on Rage Against the Machine. How should we feel about feeling so angry about injustice? Rogers answers, "And what a healthy thing that is. What a healthy thing that rage is." That's what he says, the man in the cardigan. "Without it, we would never stand up and speak out for what we believe." Because the antidote to patriarchy is not passivity. It's not the sort of stereotype of like feminist-minded, life-affirming masculinity that so many people characterize it as. The antidote is a life-guided courage, and it's a determination to speak up and act out in defense of our highest values, just like Alex Preddy did. That's what it looks like, and it does entail risk, and it does require courage. And there are men and women, of course, who exemplify that in our society. We have never needed Mr. Rogers more than we do today. Amidst this unthinking charge of technological progress and the serve of unthinking, egoic lust for profit, we need the succinct, quiet, yet profound wisdom of Mr. Rogers. Quote, "Nobody else can live the life you live," he wrote. "And even though no human being is perfect, we always have the chance to bring what's unique about us to life," end quote. What's more, we need to remind ourselves that Mr. Rogers reminds us that it's simply a lie that men are destined to live emotionally stilted, unreflective, and egoic lives. That's a lie. And I'll simply close by saying that, or rather inviting you to partake in this challenge. The next time you see a man who's patiently communicating with a child, who's caringly listening to a friend, courageously communicating his feelings, maybe telling you he can't do that thing you'd like for him to do or that you really want him to do, telling you his limits, refusing to put pride before his integrity, even when it may not necessarily suit you for him to do that, or his physical safety. Or maybe when you see a man admitting that he isn't made of steel and that he actually might need some help. The next time you see or hear a man doing these kinds of things, I want you to say to yourself, and maybe you'll even say it to him, "Now that's a man. That's a man." Thank you.
I'm not really sure how to follow that, but we do have to wrap things up, so I will, I'm going to extinguish our chalice, and we'll say together, I think the next slide up there. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing music will be by inclusion.
I don't know how many of you are familiar with Jesse Wells' work. You can look him up on YouTube. He's all over the place. He's been on Stephen Colbert. And today I'm giving his voice here, not as well as he is. When I was just a kiddo down in Arkansas, there was a place I'd go to get away from it all. I sing along with all the tunes. Our folks did what they're able, we didn't have the cable, we pointed that antenna up. I was riding on the green and rainbow, chilling with Miss Frizzle and her lizard on this magic school bus. Counting 1, 2, 3, doing my ABCs with all the learning about life and having a laugh. I'm ready to admit, it embarrassed me. A purple dinosaur is a friend indeed. Being a kid was hard, I'll confess, it was better with me, yes. Mr. Rogers taught me how to tie my shoes. He said, be patient with yourself, don't get the blues. Child, take all the time you need, but you don't eat the fruit the day that you plant the seed. Cancel the news, they can all go broke, but Mr. Rogers was good for the folks. And I was huffing and a puffing with Thomas the train. Little doggy Fishbone was cracking my case. Old man Pappy taught me how to draw on a big comfy couch and a big red dog. Into the news, they're all dead to me. Let the kids have a little tea.
And finally, my closing words. Thank you. From side, again, with Side with Love. To side with love is to proclaim a fierce, abundant love. It is a love that is clear, courageous, and accountable. It calls us beyond our comfort and to align our values with our actions. To side with love is to reject the lie that faith can remain neutral in the face of injustice and to affirm the liberating power of love. And I invite you to coffee and conversation afterward. Thank you very much.